What does it mean to forgive? The definition of the word forgive is to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. The citizens of Guatemala have showed me incredible kindness and love, even with the knowledge of the United States' involvement in the Guatemalan Civil War. The people I have had the privilege to get to know during my 4 short weeks in Guatemala have been some of the most caring, loving, and accepting people I have ever met. Although citizens are often put in marginalized communities due to structural violence by the government, the citizens of Guatemala do not seem resentful toward anyone, but rather grateful for everything they have. People who live in the United States are notorious for having freedoms and rights that other countries may lack, yet somehow they seem to be more negative and resentful. Through organizations such as De La Gente, Guatemalans are able to create communities and strong relationships that they can rely on in times of need, showing the true definition of communio. By creating these strong communities, people can start working toward the common good, helping me to understand what it really means to have a strong community. Over the course of the past month in Guatemala, I have been shocked while learning about the country's history. Not only was there a 36-year civil war killing 200,000 innocent people, but also learning about the United States' involvement in this atrocity. The United States government staged a coup against the Guatemalan government over a debate on land. This seemingly simple act created 36 years of destruction and horror for the civilians of Guatemala. When thinking about the United States, I often think of how vindictive its citizens are. Many people hold grudges over minuscule problems that will not affect us in 10 years, or fight over small issues that can normally be solved civilly. As Americans are fighting over who has the best selfie or the newest iPhone, Guatemalans are picking up the broken pieces of their lives that American government helped to destroy. When we visited the Human Rights Defenders Project, I asked the head of the organization, Rob, "Why do you continue to work down here?" His answer was simple. He said, "Because of the people. They could easily hate us gringos because of our government, yet they are the most forgiving and accepting people I have ever met." As I processed that, I understood what the word forgive really meant, and I began to appreciate everyone I met on the trip so much more.
Forgiveness.
As I have had the opportunity to learn in an experiential learning setting, I was able to understand what structural violence really was. At USAC, University of San Carlos in Guatemala, my group learned about the desire that the government had to cut educational funding because of the rise of students fighting back against the wrongdoings. Ronald, a young man we got the privilege to know through De La Gente, is one of the students that the Guatemalan government wants to stop from learning. We visited a student-run organization on campus called EOS. This organization painted murals in protest to the government. These murals displayed what actually happened during the Civil War, something the government does not want people to know. The group put up pictures of the victims of the war who had died or disappeared. This pays tribute to these humans, honoring they are just that, humans. These students are the future, and I am honored to have met some of the members. As Ronald continues to find out about the human rights violations that the government is committing, he gathers more and more students to fight back and demand the need for their rights. By cutting the educational funds, the government is creating structural violence, not allowing these students to learn about their rights and how the government is deliberately violating them. This, however, is not the first time the government has created structural violence. During the Civil War, the Army displaced hundreds of communities, forcing them without basic needs and allowing their children to die, in hopes of eliminating indigenous and poor completely. Although Guatemalan citizens have gone through years of pain and hardship, it does not hinder them from being the amazing people they are today. Being marginalized does not define someone. Ronald had said that he grew up in a poor family where he had to begin working at 13 years old, just to pay for his own education. Today, he is a college student with large hopes and aspirations, who was able to rally 60,000 students in protest to the government, proving that because you were born marginalized does not mean you must stay there. Over the last few weeks, I've had the opportunity to think a lot about my personal privilege. Because of the fact that I have white skin and live in the United States, I am seen as superior to others, simply because of the color on my skin. I grew up in a conservative town where none of its citizens had to worry about whether or not they could afford to send their children to school, or if the army would take them from their homes. When coming to Guatemala, I had one thought, and that was that the people of Guatemala would be bitter and not willing to accept white people into their communities. I could not have been more wrong. I felt an overwhelming feeling of gratitude for the immediate acceptance my group was offered as soon as our plane touched down in the city. No eyes glaring, whispers exchanged, or walking away. Rather, a hand outstretched and a smile upon their face was the welcome I received, and I immediately knew that Guatemala would be a place that would be hard to say goodbye to. Laughter, happiness, joy, and acceptance are the beautiful themes I saw at play in each of the people I met. After each visit with an organization or a farmer's dinner, our group was told that if we ever returned to Guatemala, we have a forever home, and that their doors were always open. If the situation were reversed, the United States would look upon Guatemalans as inferior, having nothing to offer us, because that is the way society in the United States is, no matter how much we don't want to admit it. When I began the Gap experience in the library at St. Norbert campus, I was given a presentation on the word communio. What is communio? Communio is the act of living in relationship with God and community. While I sat on my first day learning about this so-called important ideal, I rolled my eyes and thought, as if I really need that. However, as the semester bore on and I began to entrust in my fellow classmates, I understood how important community was in the process of living together. Our group has created a strong community among the 15 of us, yet I never saw a community as strong as that of the Guatemalans, especially in San Miguel Escobar, where I had the privilege of living. Through the co-op of De La Gente coffee farmers, many of the farmers rely on each other in times of need and rejoice with one another in times of happiness. There is the story of Moises Hernandez, an extremely beautiful human being, whom I had the privilege of living with during my 2-week homestay. Moises was found in a box hours after he was born, with no birth certificate, note, or any sign of who he was. His adoptive parents were shocked and overwhelmed with what to do, yet they took him in and raised him to be one of the best people I have ever met. The times when Moises was young were extremely hard for his parents, and they often prayed for help and guidance and received it through the help of their community. My original idea of what the common good was is to serve others, simply because it is our moral obligation as humans to do so. My definition could not have altered more. I now see the common good as a concept that all citizens deserve and wish to meet. The common good can be seen in Guatemala in the chicken bus drivers helping you down off the steps, or the genuine buenos dias I got when I walked past each person, or the tip of the hat that the farmers gave me as I walked past them in the field. The common good is seen everywhere, as long as one is willing to look for it. I now know that the common good does not simply mean serving others. The common good can be achieved when I, a person of white skin, listen to the story of a Guatemalan and bear witness to their story. I can empower them to feel comfortable telling me their lives, and empower them to tell larger audiences, in hopes that they will listen, in hopes to change the wrongdoings this country is still committing today. The common good does not mean picking up trash on the side of the highway. It means learning through others, listening to how organizations work and what their mission is to help others. It is lending a hand so that communities can start to grow by themselves without the help of outsiders. The common good is Moises, a 16-year-old boy who has not grown up with the latest iPhone or been to Disney World or anywhere outside of his country. He is a boy that learned English in less than 2 years and applies himself in every which way, just because he wants to improve himself. Someone who has aspirations higher than I could ever imagine, but most of all, someone who loves everyone and would put anyone's needs and desires before his own. This is what I believe to be the true definition of what it means to be in communio.